In this video, I'm going to go through and show you how to install Android Studio. Now this is for Windows users only, so if you're running Windows on your machine, this video is for you. Mac users, refer to your own separate video in this section that's been clearly labelled, because there are some differences in the way that the product installs, even though the way it looks is very much the same. So Windows users, let's get into it. Okay, in this video we're going to go through and install Android Studio. So first things first, we want to find the link. So Android Studio download. Okay, select the first link. Scroll down. And it gives you a bit of information, including the latest version, which we're going to be using, which is the October one. But if you've got a later version than this, make sure you do download the very latest version. There's also some talk on the page about SDK Manager, but I'm assuming you've already downloaded and installed the Android developer tools, and that had SDK Manager already, and we're going to sort of use that version of the SDK Manager to avoid you having to do any more configuration. So if you do have any problems, make sure that you have got the original Android developer tools installed. Okay, so we'll go to Downloads. And you just choose the relevant version, and you'll notice there's a Windows, a Mac and a Linux version. You can select either of them, or of course you could have just clicked this button over here to start it. So I'm going to do that. Accept the terms as per normal and download. I'm going to save it in my downloads folder. Okay, it's finished. I'm going to go and find the location where I saved it. I'm going to go to the same place I was, or that I've installed my other files, the same sort of subfolder. I'm going to paste it in there. I'm going to extract it, just as I did before. And I'm not going to create that subdirectory. I'm just going to put it so it's just in the sort of root level folder. Extract. And then we just wait till that's finished extracting. Okay, and it's done, so I'll just go back into my desktop again where I've installed it. But again, you'll be putting this in whatever your location is appropriate for your folder, for your computer. And we go into the bin folder, and you'll notice there's two versions. There's Studio and Studio 64. So one's for 64-bit and one's for your regular 32-bit. So I'm on 64-bit, so I'm going to double click that and run it. And if you get an error like this, what we need to do is configure a variable for Android Studio so that it knows where to find the Java SDK. Okay, so I'm going to close that down. I'm going to go and open my computer settings. I'm clicking Computer. I'm just going to right-click it on the screen, right-click anywhere and select Properties. Then go into Advanced System Settings. And that should bring up this little tab here. And this is the area here where we need to set up our environment and tell Android Studio where to find Java. But before we can do that, we need to go into that folder. So we're going to find the folder where the Java is installed. So I'm going back to my Eclipse folder, and then I'm going to go back to my computer. And I'm going to go into the folder, the program files, Java. And you can see I've got JDK and JRE. So I'm going to select the JRE, and we need to know the folder is going to be C program files Java JRE 1.8.0_25. So I'm just going to copy that. I've just copied that so I can sort of remember that in a minute. Go back to my settings. I'm going to type in Java_home. I'm going to paste that first bit in. Then go back, and we're in C:\/ program files Java/JDK as per what was on the screen. Click on OK. That's now set up a user variable, as you can see there, which should be pointing to our folder. If I've got it right, I'm going to click OK. Click OK. And I'm going to close that down. Close these screens down because we don't need them anymore. And now if we go back to Android again, okay, so I'm going to restart, run it again. This time Android Studio should now load. Now what we can do is you can import your settings from a previous version of Android Studio, but of course we don't have a previous version, so I'm going to select I do not have a previous version. Click OK. It should then start up. Okay, so once it's started up, we're going to just move that on the screen a little bit more. Now we're going to go over here into Configure. We're going to go into SDK Manager and just confirm that it does load that up. And again, that should be the SDK Manager that we've been using previously. So it should already have all your settings, the latest version of the API, API 21 should already be in here. But we'll just check this and see. We can see that we've got API 21 installed, so it looks like we've got the right version. And it has got an update to the support library, but I'll install that in, later. So we're good to go in terms of the setup. So at this point, we can see that Android Studio can see the SDK. What we want to do is go back, and we're just going to do a quick new project just to make sure that it all works. And I just want to show you just a couple of quick features of the Android Studio. First thing, my application name. So I'm just going to use something that I haven't used before. So I'm going to put, so you can see what I've done here. I've put the company domain in as it should be, and the package name is automatically reversed by Android Studio for you. And the other thing, of course, is the project location. We want to change that. By default, it's going to default into a folder called Android Studio Project. So I'm just going to put that in a different folder. So I'm just going to put it on my C drive, on my desktop. And again, you'd put this in whichever location was appropriate for you. I'll put it on my desktop. And we'll just call that, we'll create a new folder by clicking this button here. And we'll call it Android Studio Projects. Okay, so I'm going to put all my projects in there. So you can now see we've got desktop, Android Studio Projects, my test project. Click on Next. Now you can see what changes here. By default, it tells you like lower API levels target more devices, as we've learned, but have fewer features available. And you can see here it's telling you by targeting API 15 and later, your API will run on approximately 87.9% of the devices that are active in the Google Play Store. And because Android Studio is developed by Google, we're getting these types of stats, which is fantastic. But we can override that. We can click on this. We can go back and say, no, we want Jelly Bean. Jelly Bean's still 78.3. So I'm quite happy still with API 16 to use that as a minimum. But if you wanted to, I mean, we can go all the way back up to literally the first version. And obviously, if we did that, 100% of the devices are going to be able to run it. But of course, we've got a lot more functionality we can't use. So I'm going to stick to what I've done throughout the course and use API 16. Now, these options here we won't need, but obviously at some point, we can target TV projects for Android TV or Google Wear, but we're not going to do that this time. Go next. Oh, you notice the other thing is the target SDK is not here, and that's because it assumes the latest version automatically, in this case API 21. Okay, and again, this screen looks a little bit different. You've got lots more options here in Android Studio for defaults. Blank activity we've used before. We've also got blank activity with fragment, some full screen, but Google Maps activity, which we're going to be looking at later in the course, but lots of other options as well as defaults, even Google Play Services activity. So there's lots of different options with Android Studio, but just for this test, I'm just going to use purely a blank activity. And again, if you recall back to Android Developer Tools, these things are very much similar to what they were. Similar sort of names and so forth. So we'll leave that all the same. Just click on Finish. Now this will look a little bit different, but what I'll do is I'm going to create another video and just walk through the structure of an Android Studio project. It still is to a large degree obviously an Android project, but there's a few things that are a little bit different in terms of using Gradle and so forth like for building the project. And also the editor has changed significantly as well. First time you use Android Studio, you'll find this is quite slow. It does take a while to chug along and to get started, but bear in mind I'm running these videos on a fairly slow computer, so that's probably not helping as well. You can see what it's doing the first time we're using this. It's actually downloading some data. This is one of the reasons why it's quite slow. And you also notice down the bottom of the screen while that's chugging along, check for updates. You can configure this automatically. I'll do that in the next video when we talk about the sort of more of an overview of how to get around Android Studio. how to do updates, but it's auto updates are built in. And I suggest, because this product is in beta, that you regularly do update to get to the latest version with the new features and bug fixes and so forth. So I have found that once this first initialization is complete, it is a lot quicker creating new projects. So do give it a bit of time the first time it's run. Quite normal for it to take a while. Okay, you can see it's finished now, and I'll just try and resize that again because it's I've got quite a small amount of screen real estate here for doing these videos. You'll probably have a bigger screen than me, so I'm just going to resize this so it fits in the little window so you can see it all. Now I do suggest you look at these tips of the day, because there's lots of great tips there on particular different features of the editor and so forth, and you'll learn a lot from watching those and just sort of going through them. So you can see this is the test project that's come up by default, but we'll be going through this in more detail in another video. And obviously as we create the next app, because we're going to be using this exclusively, we're going to find out a lot more about the functionality then as well. But this is just a bit of an overview of what it looks like. You can see it's quite nice. I like the device sort of showing here on the screen. And the good thing is you can see both the text and the device at the same time on the screen, but I'll show you that in the next video. Alright, so I'm going to leave this video here and move on to the next video, and we'll go through a bit of a walkthrough on Android Studio.